Hello everyone, here we are once again, Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. My name is Mark Stark. I'm the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, operating in Arizona, California, and Nevada. Today we're going to cover 3 consistent questions that come up from sales executives. Now, I have to say, as soon as we started advertising this, I got a lot more questions. So next week, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up to just any questions that anyone has overall. But for today, let's cover 3 key questions that I know are on many sales executives' mind. Let's jump right in. All right. First question. Love this one. When is the right time to hire an assistant? So when is the right time to hire an assistant? I have to tell you, I think I may have a very different way at looking at making this decision. You know, quite often what I hear is before I make that decision, I have to look at my, how much money I have. I mean, how many dollars I've got. Can I afford it yet? I mean, I've been doing some business, but can I really afford to hire an assistant? Okay. Let me be blunt. I do not believe that is the right thought process. I've seen it fail time and time again. Let me give you an analogy. It would be like a restaurant opens up and they have, you order chicken and they go, oh, sorry, we haven't been open long enough to have chicken. We just have Spam. Okay, and you can have Spam 3 ways. But as we get more successful, we're going to add items to our menu. So come back at another time. Well, guess what? I don't think that's a successful way to open up a business, and specifically a restaurant. You know what? Like it or not, you've got to have what your business needs to succeed. Now, there's different levels that you can do that, of course. It may not have to be a full-time assistant. It can be, in some ways, virtual. It might start off as a transaction coordinator, part-time, whatever the case may be is my real message here is your clients and your business doesn't care about your financial situation. Just going to be blunt. So I want you to understand there are 3 items that affect you hiring an assistant. 3. One is I want to maximize my time. The reason I'm thinking about hiring an assistant, I want to maximize the time I have for lead generation and lead follow-up. That's one reason to do it. Second is I want to just maximize my free time. Mark, I'm doing really well. In fact, I'm very happy with the revenue I'm generating. But I'm working a lot extra time than I would like to. So what I would like to do is potentially hire an assistant and along those lines, reduce time for important items, but items that I shouldn't have to do personally. Okay, so maximizing free time. Thirdly, you simply are hiring an assistant to stop doing some of the things that you don't like to do. Okay, now those are the 3 areas. 1, maximizing lead gen, lead follow-up. 2, I want to open up free time. Or 3, I just don't want to do some of the work that has to be done. Okay, so I want someone else to do it for me. Or any combination of those 3. So it doesn't have to be one of those. It might be 2 of those. It might be all 3. All right. But the reality of it is that's the 3 that you're making this choice on. Now, here's the kicker. If you believe that you can't afford an assistant or you're waiting until you do more business, that's the problem. Meaning that issue is a mindset issue. Because truthfully, if you would have that assistant and you have your DRC, your daily revenue commitment, and you use that time wisely, think about all the additional, prospecting, lead generation, conversations, communication with potential people you could do if you weren't doing other things. I do agree with you. If you hire someone and don't do any more effort than you did before, and you really didn't have enough money to afford it, could that be stressful? Absolutely. Because what you've done is you've chosen to take on additional expense that supposedly was used to increase your revenue, but you didn't take any time to work along those lines. All right. So the number one reason I think you should hire an assistant, it's to generate more business. Now, keep in mind, none of those are wrong. Truthfully, if you're making money and you're comfortable and you really just want more free time with family, that's a right decision too. But in most cases, what you're trying to do is generate more business. I've always talked about highest and best use. This is a perfect example. If you can be doing highest and best use work because you're worth $500, $1,000 an hour, why are you doing $15, $20 an hour work? The reality of it is it's important work, but it doesn't have to be important for you to do. All right? So to sum up on this question, when is the right time? Now. And start off with getting your revenue focus in line, knowing I need to achieve X. I need to talk to so many people per day. I need to go on so many appointments per day. I could do that if somebody else was taking care of A, B, and C that I really don't want to do. All right, question 2. And of course, this is coming up a lot because of our new VAC 2.0. How should I best leverage our company VAC 2.0? And clearly, it's a great question, mainly because I love the idea that you're thinking about it. The worst thing you can do is go into any system, any endeavor, and not really know why and what I should do with it, because you end up then floundering instead of targeting your focus. So the first thing, let me talk about this. How do you leverage it? Okay, in the best way possible. You start off with what's been our goal. What are we trying to do? And we've talked about this many times. National has talked about it. Chris, our CEO, has talked about it. So what are we trying to accomplish? Alan Dalton has talked about it as well. And that is, we want our clients, and really anyone in the market we service, to see us as the expert, okay, in that area. And we want them personally to see us as their trusted advisor. So if that's our goal, we want people to see us as their trusted advisor for real estate. And, or if you're talking about ABC area, Mark's the expert. So we want them to see us as the expert and their trusted advisor. So what are some of the things we can use VAC 2.0 to get there? Well, one is hyper local reports. But this goes back kind of that first one of generating revenue. If you're going to send out these reports and you're not going to have a premeditated plan of attack to communicate with the people you're sending them to, okay, and just hoping the reports are effective, specifically when we're talking about your sphere or past clients. I understand if you're sending it out to a general area, you're trying to get how many people will come back to you. Makes total sense. But specifically, if you're sending it out first to the sphere and people you know, you got to have a plan to reach out to them. All right, so you're giving them hyper-local information, and guess what? I want your feedback. Did you see the report I just sent you? What do you think? You know what I love about it? It's really talking just about where you live, what's important to you because you either own a property in the area, okay, as a rental or an investment, or it's your personal residence. So what did you think? All right, I'm dying to get your opinion. So you want to have that. That will, I think, really help leverage, okay, that opportunity. Another idea. Remember this, when you're dealing with your sphere, I want you to remember this concept. Use the one person concept. What do I mean by that? Okay, this will be a great thought process for you. So you've got 250 people in your sphere. I want you to think about if you had one person. You just had one person in your sphere. What would you want them to get? What questions would you ask them upon receiving it? Okay, when you go with just one person, you stop thinking in this mass thought process and you say, okay, I've got Mark I'm going to send this information to. What do I want Mark to get in all of its forms? All right. In fact, you may even add some, outside mailers, maybe direct mailers to it, not only through directly through the VAC system. All right. So what specifically do I want Mark to get? When I send Mark these reports, again, what questions am I going to ask? All right. What feedback do I want from Mark? So you break it down to one individual person and you kind of build your plan of everything you're going to utilize within the VAC. And as I said, outside of the VAC, that's all going to Mark. And what your expectations are for Mark and what your questions for Mark. See, once you break that down to just one person, now you can build your plan for hundreds of people. All right. But you got to get it to one. All right? It doesn't mean you can't tweak it based on price range or whatever you're doing. But the reality of it is once you at least get what your feelings are for one person, it's so much easier to do it for a group. Next item I would focus on as it comes to VAC 2.0. I would target your attack. All right. I think the days are pretty much done, okay, for just a blind general attack. I mean, even if you're targeting an area that you don't know, you're targeting the area for specific reasons. So I really want you to target your attack. What I want you to do, think about this. If you target your attack, you can pick your average sales price because you're picking a specific area that has a certain price range. So when I hear sales executives say to me, Mark, I really want to grow my average sales price. What that tells me is they're getting the business they get without a direct thought process of, wait a minute, I want to break in to a new price range. Well, that's got to happen with a premeditated plan of attack. It doesn't happen just automatically. VAC 2.0 is a great way to start that process. Again, it comes along with live intention of communicating with individuals, eventually face to face. May start on the phone, may start with a door knock, but the reality of it is you want to eventually get to them and have a real conversation face to face with them. But it's got to start in some way, shape, or form. So sending those reports out to a specific neighborhood, beautiful, beautiful way to do that. Remember, some easy ways to get email addresses. Of course, you can canvass the area. You can do a contest and do a mailer. All right. You can send out the report and get people's feedback, print out the report and send it to everyone and just ask them if you'd like to get this free report that keeps you up to date on everything going on in your neighborhood that is relevant to you. Just send your email address to me and it'll start at no cost to you right away. So there's different ways that you can do that. You're really even choosing your own people farm. Think about it. If you want to, we also do, and open houses will come back someday, okay, where we can do normal open houses. But when you think about open houses, okay, or you're canvassing a neighborhood, if you're doing an open house in a $500,000 neighborhood, what's the chances of meeting a $100,000 purchaser? Slim to none. All right. So the reality of it is you can control the people you interact with as well as you can control the price range. And last, but certainly not least on this is when you target your attack for marketing dollars, one, you'll save dollars, but you have to measure your result. Okay. First of all, the VAC 2.0 is the most inexpensive way for you to continue marketing that out. All right, because there's no direct expense to you and you've got quality intel that's relevant to them. So it's very powerful. And then when you back that up with your personal efforts, that even increases, okay, that efficiency and certainly that upside to you. But be ready to measure those results. So if you are spending some dollars on any type of marketing, you can tweak that because you know what's working and what's not working. Remember, if you're just doing generally and you're not measuring result, you'll end up wasting time, effort, money, and you're sending things out that it's really not being effective. But when you know what's working and what's not working, you can continue doing more and more what works and dump the rest. All right, third and final question for today is, where do I see the market heading and what should I do, Mark, to prepare? Okay, well, this is a big question, which I can totally understand why it affects everybody, and it's on many sales executives' minds. So let me share. First of all, this starts unbelievably with attitude, the way you see the world. All right. And I have to be very upfront. I've talked to sales executives. I've talked to brokers. Okay. I've talked to the general public. And it is very interesting to me to see the amazing differences in the way people see the world. I shared this morning at a meeting that, I've talked to some people, very, very sad scenario where their business because of COVID had closed down. And it's amazing. Those individuals seem to have the most positive outlook on the world. The people I've interacted with, they're ready for their next adventure. They're just very positive along those lines. And I promise you, they have every right to be frustrated and angry because in some cases, it was their livelihood and that's all that they had at that moment in time. It was amazing how sensitive and how positive they can be to what's next for them or how they're going to restart up their business, their restaurant, whatever the case may be after the fact. I talk to sales executives, and in some cases, sales executives are very negative on what's going on in the world, and others are very positive. What do we know about that? Well, we know that the world isn't different, okay? It's how we view the world that can be different, all right? I'm here to tell you now, and this is true for brokers too. And I hate to say this, I don't mean this in a negative fashion, but I've had conversation with brokers that clearly it's going to be opportunities for us and other brokers who have a different, more positive outlook, because somebody who doesn't have a positive outlook or seems like this world is in a real bad challenge that's going to affect their business, they're right, it will. All right, guys, listen, I'm the last one to say that there aren't issues and challenges in the world and the whole bit. What I want to do is I want to focus on what I need to accomplish and how can I do this in the environment that I'm in. Listen, anything we can do to help change the environment, all for it. That's great. But the reality of it is I need to live in reality and make sure I'm moving forward. Okay, so it starts off with your attitude in a big way. And the scary part about it is, remember, you will be right. Things are negative, you're right. Things are positive, you're right. Now, the last piece on attitude, and I'm going to jump into some real specifics along these lines, is keep this in mind. When you're wondering how this whole market, I'm going to share a piece of this at the end along these same lines, how it's going to affect you, you need to look at the business you're doing. When you look in a macro viewpoint, well, that's really not what you do. Look at how many units you closed last year and then ask yourself, how am I going to close 10% more the following year? Because truthfully, in your world, regardless of what ebbs and flows, that's what you have to focus in on. What are you trying to do to move your business forward? So what's going to be affected? Well, there's two main metrics that I look at. I look at job growth and I look at population growth. And ultimately, job growth in many ways drives population growth. Are jobs going to be affected? Absolutely, they will be. What ultimately will be the number? I don't know yet. I believe by year end, we should have a good idea. All right. Once a lot of this stuff kind of flushes itself out, we see where we are overall with COVID. All right. That we will have a better idea of what unemployment really is going to look like. We'll be past the election and we'll really see, okay, maybe it'll take a little bit longer than that. But let's say by year end, we should have a better idea. All right. Number one. So let's say jobs, and I believe they are, will be absolutely affected. There will be people who lose their jobs, have to relocate, whatever the case may be. What is it going to mean to each of the markets we operate in? Well, one, I want you to keep a mindset on supply and demand. I cannot tell you, I'm hearing it from everyone. There is a tight supply of inventory in the MLS. And did you hear how I finished that sentence? I said inventory in the MLS. Houses haven't gone anywhere, guys. Okay, so the inventory is all there. When we say low inventory, we're meaning low inventory actually in the MLS, making it easier to find that inventory. But please know, many transactions are being put together, okay, with inventory that is not in the MLS. It may end up counting in the MLS at closing, but the reality of it is prior to the transaction starting, it wasn't in the MLS. I did my job. I sent my letters. I door knocked. I reached out and ended up putting a transaction together with a property that wasn't even listed. Happening all the time. All right. So based on supply and demand, we are in a clear, shortage in the MLS of inventory. How is that going to help us in a situation where, people have lost their jobs? Okay, well, here's how it's going to help. If you look at, and we're just doing an analysis on this, all right, if you look at your specific market, and I will be back to you with these stats, but if you look at your specific market and see what is the normal amount of inventory that my market, existed in. Let's say you take from 2010 to 2015. And you said, what was the normal inventory market, that the market was comfortable with? And what is it today? I don't care what market you're in, you will see an absolute shortage, from where we are today in the MLS versus where we were. That gives us a lot of flexibility, right, from a standpoint that if people need to sell their homes. Ultimately, what am I saying? We need the inventory. We need those homes. And if they do drop into inventory for whatever reason, because someone has to relocate, they've got a job in another state or whatever the case may be is, then guess what? We will be able to digest that inventory, right? Number two along these lines, please, oh please do not compare this to 07, 08, 09 downturn. The metrics and the aspects of what went on in 08, 09, are nothing like they are today. All right. Some of the main differences most of the sales at that time, there was so much investor-based sales in each of the markets. So many people were buying for investment to flip. We were selling homes, the same home, 2 and 3 times in a month. It was pretty crazy at that time. In fact, I have to say, I remember in Las Vegas, there were lines of 300 people to buy a house, and about a half a dozen of those people were actually thinking of moving in. Everyone else was buying it to buy it, rent it, flip it, not even rent it, just buy it, let the price go up and resell it, because that's how crazy the market is. That's not what we're dealing with today. What we really are dealing with today is a shortage of real inventory of buyers who want to relocate to the markets that we operate in. And you know what, guys? I don't have as many of the stats on markets we don't operate in, so I'm talking about the markets our organization, sells in. And in those markets, absolutely, we have a shortage of inventory in the MLS, so we could utilize that. The next aspect of this is, please keep in mind that short sales and foreclosures are always part of a healthy market. It's a sad situation for any reason, that anyone would lose their job or have a life change and forces them to not be able to make payments and have to leave their house. But that happens normally in a normal, healthy market. Things happen. So us having some short sales and or foreclosures in any market is going to be part of it. Do I see that being an issue for all the markets? And us having a big challenge with that? I don't. And trust me, I get all these videos talking about doom and gloom, and here's all the layoffs that are going to happen, and here's my problem with it. I'm going to share something right after this that I think will drive this home. They make huge assumptions, of all these foreclosures that are coming because of all these potential layoffs and all this stuff. And you know what? I guess any way that you look at the numbers, they can be manipulated in any way, shape, or form. Here's what I see. First, let's talk about homeowners. Because there's renters and homeowners. Let's, for right now, talk about homeowners. The government today, all right, and again, some of this we don't know, but this is what I believe. Some of you may agree with it, some of you may disagree with it. But I'm just telling you what I believe. Is you've got the government who has stepped up, regardless of which side you're on, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is that the government has stepped up and has been paying out. We're talking not billions of dollars, but we're upwards of trillions of dollars to support the economy. Does it make sense that after the fact, what we should do is, we've deferred payments for X months. let's say an example, someone owes $15,000 in back payments. What we need to do is force them to pay it day one and kick them out of their property so we can foreclose on them. I do not see that happening. I just don't. So what I do think is some of the conversations I'm hearing is those dollars, probably with some additional fees and expenses, will be rolled on the back of a mortgage, and in some way, shape, or form, homeowners will be able to roll that in their mortgage. Maybe their payment adjusts slightly, and I mean slightly, and then they get back on track once that deferral is over. That's what my belief is in that. Why go through all that effort, spend all that money to just cause the problem a few months down the road? Doesn't make any sense to me. From a renter standpoint, I think it's going to be different. I don't think the government probably will step up and be helping investors deal with their property zone. So once the moratorium ends or the deferral ends there on evictions, we probably will see many evictions throughout all the markets. And because that will be up to that particular investor. I think some will work with their renters. I think some investors will end up taking renters even though they lost their property via COVID and giving them another opportunity, maybe with additional security deposits, whatever the case may be. And then I think there will be, tough landlords that says, get out, you owe me $14,000 of everything that needs to be paid immediately or you're out. I think you're going to have a combination of that. But I do think renters, will be affected. Another message why home ownership is a really powerful place to be. It really is. It does get the benefit and pat on the back, more than an investor-based rental scenario will be. Crazy low interest rates. Obvious. Sometimes we miss a couple aspects of this, but crazy low interest rates. What does that really mean? Well, first of all, certainly I can buy more home or my payment's lower, but don't miss this. That, when interest rates are at a normal percentage, and I hate to use the word normal, but call it anywhere between 5 and 7%, a consumer is paying around 7 to 9% of their payment to principal. That's normal. That's historic. It can even be less than that. You remember we make our payment and we're only paying very little at the beginning to principal. I have to tell you now, because interest rates are so very low, that when you start getting interest rates under, 3%, 2.5%, that percentage of principal that you're paying up front escalates dramatically. I've seen it as high as 40%, all right, depending on what that interest rate and how low that interest rate goes. So that is unheard of. That is a huge benefit for everyone buying now. When we talk about, is it a great time to buy? It's an incredible time to buy. That is unheard of to say, now every payment I make from this point forward, so much more of my actual money doesn't go to interest, goes to principal, paying down my mortgage. Powerful. Matt Mullen did I don't know if you guys saw this video, but he did a great rent to buy video. All right. And it just was another reason why it was so amazing, all right, to purchase property today. Showing the difference between, and these are facts of if you choose to rent a property versus buy a property. And it was over the top benefit to buy. Matt, who his whole group, Matt Mullen's group, works out of our St. Rose office in Las Vegas, Nevada. I love it. He even said in there, everyone has different goals. Everyone has different numbers from a standpoint of what's important to them. But the facts are the facts. It's an incredible time to buy versus rental. Last point on this is this. Look, when you're working with your clients, when you're looking at your own situation, the most important aspect to look at is, what is your personal goal? That's how you make decisions. All right. Please don't get caught up in running with the herd that, I hear everyone is doing X. I hear everyone is doing Y. I need to maximize my money. I need to do this. Stop. can you please get focused on what's important to you? Step one is make sure you're aware as a sales executive what's important to your client. All right? Don't worry about what anyone else is doing. Find out. So when clients are on the fence thinking, oh my God, I think the market's going to dump, which I do not see that happening in any way, shape, or form. It's why we continue to invest in our company and our business. All right. But when they're thinking that way, remember, what's your job? Get them off the fence. Regardless, I'm not moving forward. I'm moving forward. I just don't want them on the fence. So that's rule number one. But when you talk to them, show them these facts of record, why it's so important for people to buy, okay, versus rent. Remember, you got to have a place to live. You got to have a place to live. So they're either going to rent, okay, or they're going to buy. Depending on where they live, let's just say in the whole United States, they're going to go somewhere and they're going to rent or they're going to buy. One of the two. So you want to show that difference in facts of record to your buyer. But most important, listen to them and ask those questions to find out what's important to them. And last, but certainly not least, is what's important to you. You know, the biggest mix-up or the biggest, I think, trap that sales executives fall into is they're so focused on macro. Okay, they're so focused on, well, what happens if the market does this? Okay, let me be blunt. You had 24 closings last year. All right, you want to go to 30. You want to go to 35. I'm going to be blunt. No matter what happens to the market, no matter what happens to foreclosures or X, Y, and Z, you can hit your 30 closings if you focus on hitting your 30 closings. But you're not going to get there if you're focused and worried about what's going on in a macro way. What happens macro does not affect your micro business. What you do, okay, and how you're targeting what your goals are, that matters to your micro business. So make sure you're not falling into that trap. I promise you this. I don't ignore the macro aspects of how the market's changing or affected, but I promise you this, the decisions we're making is what's in the best interest of our company moving forward, okay, serving more clients, growing more market share, okay, in the areas that we serve. Because guess what? Whatever happens in a market is not just your issue, it's everyone's issue in the market. Every agent, every brokerage, every client who lives in that market is affected. There will be people who win and there will be people who don't win. You want to be on the side of winners. So if you want to win, then you got to focus on what you're doing to win and not get caught up in the noise of all the worry and threats and oh my God, and let me tell you, and all this stuff. You've got to stay focused on, I want to hit my transactions, I want to accomplish my goals, and I want to make sure I accomplish the goals for my clients. All right? We are going to have a vibrant market for a while. Prices may adjust. Totally okay with that. Prices have gone up substantially. If they adjust, that's okay. Again, stay focused on you, stay focused on your clients, and I promise you, you will win. If today was valuable for you, please like it. Please share it. And please follow if you haven't already. I appreciate everyone's time. And next week, I am scheduling that I'm going to open it up to questions to everybody. I'm not going to have anything pre-planned, so we'll have the whole time for you to ask any questions that are on your mind. Have a great week, everybody, and stay productive. Bye-bye. See you next week.